Hello, dear friends. Welcome to this program, Our Moments with God, our moments with the Word of God, our moments with the love, mercy, and compassion of God, our moments also with the holy ones of God, the saints of God, like the Blessed Virgin Mary, one of the saints who has the highest place in the Catholic Church, but also those who lived a rather saintly life. And my dear friends, I invite you also to examine yourself and myself how close we are to God's wish and God's will and God's plan by living our life, particularly if we call ourselves Christians, Catholics, or of any other denomination, whether we follow the word of God that we proclaim. And share the videos with others and ask your friends also to subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Yesterday, I made the video in the cemetery and spoke about the peace on earth and also the issue of resurrection. And there, in the video, I had also mentioned that tomorrow, that is today, is the 12th death anniversary of my earthly mother. And that's why I have chosen as today a motif of my heavenly mother. Of course, my earthly mother is also, I believe, in heaven with the Blessed Virgin Mary, because she was also a great devotee of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and I too have learned a lot from her, particularly her prayers and how dedicated she was. Actually, all of us have great regard for our mothers because they brought us into the world. They raised us up as children and young people and made us stand on our feet. And we can easily give credit to our parents, particularly our mothers, because I'm remembering today on the 4th of June, my mother in a very particular way. But I have always felt the protection of my heavenly mother as also protection of my earthly mother as long as she lived and was there. And I am also particularly interested to mention about my mother's death, because St. Paul today in the first reading speaks about if we have died with him, we will also live with him. And I think of my mother, that she died with him, she also will live with him. And let me also tell you that today, being Thursday here in Europe and Austria, it's a national holiday, because today here in Europe they celebrate the feast of the precious body and blood of Christ, or Corpus Christi, which is actually in the Universal Church celebrated on Sunday. So I am not making a video on that today, that I'll make on the coming Sunday. But I just wanted to inform you that here this feast, as well as the Ascension of the Lord, is celebrated on a Thursday. So that is actually today for those of us here. But the gospel is even more important, because a scribe comes to Jesus and asks him, what is the most important commandment? What is the most important commandment? So Jesus tells him, the first is, hear, O Israel, there is only one Lord and one God. You must love him with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with everything. And the second commandment is similar to that, to love your neighbor as yourself. So I think I have told you on this channel earlier that this first commandment, hear, O Israel, this is actually being prayed practically every day or often in Jewish homes. Because remember, that time when Jesus was speaking this, there was no Christianity yet. Jesus himself was a Jew, and he lived according to the Jewish laws. Of course, he broke away from a lot of Jewish laws and established his own new law, which is what he is emphasizing today. But at that time, for him, it was important to repeat or reiterate the commandment or the prayer that the Jewish families pray every day. Listen, O Israel, your God is one God, and he alone is the Lord, and you must love him with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And then the second commandment, Jesus doesn't stop for that man to ask him, what is the second commandment? Jesus puts that second commandment almost on par with the first commandment, to love your neighbor as yourself. And then he adds, there is no greater commandment than these. You know, there are a lot of people in the church and in Christians, I don't want to label them as conservatives, and then there is always a, distinction between conservatives and liberals, and I don't want to categorize myself as belonging to one or the other group. No. But there are some people, I know when I go to say Mass also here in the city, English Mass, there are some people who want to bring in so many small little things into the liturgy, into these, which are not really important. But they want to introduce, and they feel quite satisfied with these small little observances. Jesus always stood against those small observances. Remember about the Sabbath, how his disciples were eating on the Sabbath, and you know the controversy. And Jesus said that Sabbath was made for man, not man for Sabbath. So rules are made for men, not men are made for rules. That rules stand there and we should adjust ourselves. No. What we should really adjust is love your neighbor as yourself. On the Feast of the Holy Trinity, which was last Sunday, we said God so loved the world. And I mentioned to you that the actual essence of God's existence, of the Holy Trinity, and of Him creating us is this love. And let us practice that love. And it is not enough to say, I love God with all my heart, I do all my prayers, without loving your neighbor or loving other people and not forgiving them. Yes, this is very important, and we need to really practice in our life love of our neighbor. Even if they are against us, even if they criticize us, even if they stab us or backbiting they do, despite that, we need to love everybody. And my dear friends, if you like, you may please subscribe to this channel. Thank you.